Amelia, it's great to see you there. Thanks for joining us. Look, it's fair to say that in the last 6 months or so, it's been hard for adults to digest the amount of news that we've been getting. How have you been managing to cover it on BTN for kids?
Yeah, it's been a pretty intense year for everyone, and of course kids are feeling it just as much as adults are. So on BTN, we always make sure that we consider a few things when we present these difficult news stories. We make sure that we don't shy away from them, because kids are going to be hearing about them anyway. They might hear about them from their friends at school, or they might overhear parents talking about them. They might be on social media or just Googling things, so they're going to hear about it. So we definitely always make sure we talk about these difficult things. But we consider really carefully how we talk about them. So, for instance, when it's something like the Black Lives Matter protests that you're seeing with the video with George Floyd, for instance, we're not going to show that to kids because that's pretty difficult for adults to watch. I found that really difficult to watch. So we make sure that we talk about these things, but we're careful about the pictures that we show. We also like to give kids context. So we've actually done a story that was all about the history of racism in America. And we talked about the civil rights movement, we talk about slavery, we talk about Indigenous Australian history. And so that gives kids, you know, a bit of perspective, which is really helpful in understanding these issues. And one of the biggest things as well is just that we make sure that we always find the positive aspect of these stories. And I know that sounds really weird, and you know, when you're talking about something like coronavirus or even a terrorist attack, but there's always something positive that comes out of these really, really horrible situations. You know, you would have seen with the coronavirus, people helping each other and, you know, assisting their elderly neighbours, and those beautiful pictures of people singing from their balconies. You know, there's always something really good to talk about. With the bushfires, we had people donating so much money, and with Black Lives Matter, you know, people are coming together for change. And so it's really important to give kids the positive side of these stories as well, that you don't always get to see in the news.
I've got to say, Amelia, we've been asking some of our viewers some advice on how they are tackling this, on how they're talking to their kids, and so many of them have mentioned and given a shout out to BTN. I need to read you one from Leah. She says, BTN has been invaluable for my kids. It explains everything that's going on honestly and openly, including topics that we probably wouldn't have thought of, which has led to some really interesting discussions. The short format is good so as not to bombard and overload, and it's entertaining too. So there you go. It's a real rave review for your program.
Oh, thank you. That's so good to hear. I love hearing that.
I imagine it's hard for parents who would be tempted perhaps to isolate their kids from some of this news, because it is overwhelming and it can create some anxiety. How do you pick and choose what to say and what not to say?
Yes, look, it comes with a lot of experience. BTN has been going for 52 years, actually. We just celebrated our 52nd birthday. So thank you very much. I haven't been hosting for that whole time. So we have a lot of people on our team who help us, you know, work out what we should talk to kids about. We have an education advisor who helps us work those things out. We have experienced producers. But, you know, if you're thinking about it from a perspective of a parent or teacher wanting to talk to kids, I think that, you know, you can judge on a case-by-case basis. It might be down to the age of the child you're talking to, or, you know, just judging what you know your kid can handle. But like I said, you know, I think it's really important to know that kids are going to be seeing this information. They're going to be seeing these things either way. So do you want the news to be coming from, you know, what could be an untrustworthy news source? You know, there's a lot of fake news out there, and social media in particular is, you know, it's a bit of a minefield for kids. So, I mean, it's better that they probably hear it from a parent or a teacher rather than, or from BTN, rather than from just randomly looking stuff up. So I think it's really important just to make sure that we're communicating with kids. There's also, you know, a lot to think about with mental health. I think is really something we should be talking about right now, especially since we're coming out of this pandemic, which is just so stressful for everybody, including kids. So I think think we need to make sure that we're talking to kids about, you know, knowing that feelings of worry and sadness and anger are really normal feelings to have, and that we as adults have them all the time, and that it's really just important to talk to somebody and to ask questions if you're unsure. You know, talk to an adult, talk to a parent or a teacher or your friends about how you feel, or if you don't understand something, then ask, you know. So I think it's really important to just be having these open conversations.
Do you think sometimes adults underestimate kids because they are incredibly perceptive?
Absolutely. I think adults are unfortunately underestimating kids all the time, which is why BCN exists. It exists because we want to give kids a voice, and we want to help kids understand the news in a simple way, a way that kids understand and enjoy. So yeah, it's unfortunately, I think we sort of forget that kids have all of these feelings and all of these questions, and they're taking in so much, and we see that at BCN all the time in, you know, the stories that we do about topics like Black Lives Matter. They're really passionate. We get a lot of feedback. They're really passionate about these topics, and they want to talk about them, and they have a really strong sense of justice, I think. So yeah, don't underestimate your kids.
Absolutely. It's a great message. Amelia Moseley, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some of your wisdom, and all the best with BTN.
Thanks for having me.
And we have been hearing some great comments from you about how you deal with this with your kids. And across the board, I think people are echoing what Amelia was saying, that honesty is really the way to go. Kate says, be honest with kids, otherwise they won't appreciate you. Kids aren't stupid, and life is happening, good or bad. You know, they've been sent home from school. They can see that some supermarket shelves were empty. Kate says they need to know.
I think, I really like what Amelia said, that, you know, kids are going to see the news anyway, and then they're going to talk about it, and then they'll talk about it with their friends, and if they don't have the right information, that's where anxiety may actually come in as well. And of course, there's always fake news around, so for parents to be around to be able to clarify facts and to be able to talk through the issues as well with the kids will help to lessen the anxiety. Tierney wrote in to say, I'm a mother of 3 young girls. The oldest is 5. We have told her there is a nasty bug out there. She's, of course, talking about the coronavirus, and that it is stopping us from doing some things. It's important to allow kids to be kids. They don't need to worry about issues that are far too complex for even some adults to understand.
Which I think is interesting, because they do worry because they see it. And so I think that's what Amelia was saying, that the worry is sometimes already there, and it can actually be reduced or helped if there is an adult who can explain it. And Benjamin says something along those lines. He says, walk them through it, take the time and allow them to ask questions and process the information in their own way. Cool, calm and collected always wins.
Yeah. Darren wrote in to say, tell kids the truth straight up. Beating around the bush doesn't build resilience or emotional strength. That is very true as well. And I like the fact that, you know, as a family, you sit down and have a conversation about what is happening in life, and that could actually lead on to other conversations about what's happening in your children's lives as well, and how they're seeing the world. Another thing I liked about Amelia saying is that kids have a real strong sense of justice. So they do. They see the bad things and they say, why is this bad thing happening? Or, you know, they only see things in good or bad or black or white. But then to be able to have that conversation with an adult, to be able to learn nuance as well, helps them mature.
And you know what? It's not only about the kids learning, because I think that sometimes the comments that come from kids, especially on issues like justice, can surprise adults and challenge us as well. So it's also about the adults learning as well.
Yeah, that is true. It's very interesting. I was trying to talk to a 10-year-old about what had happened recently with the Indigenous boy, 17-year-old boy that was arrested, and then his legs got swept out under him. And I was trying to explain to him what was happening. You know, the police perhaps had used excessive force. This is how police do arrest people, but, you know, there is excessive force as well. Now people are discussing as to whether that force was needed or not. And this very brilliant 10-year-old boy asked me, well, has anybody asked the cop why he did it? Has anybody asked the cop, maybe he had a bad day, or maybe he came from a bad family and that's how he was treated? And I thought, you know, we don't give kids enough credit because they do think about things a lot more than we think that they do.
Absolutely. And a big shout out to BTN who helps parents to dissect all these things
exactly.
as well.
All these comments from you really showed a lot of love for BTN. So
Yeah.
BTN, thank you.